Hey everybody, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Bill.
Have you ever asked yourself, what is your superpower?
Everyone has a superpower. Most people just don't know what it is.
We're going to help you uncover it.
This podcast is all about helping people figure out what their truly unique superpower is.
Superpowers, what's yours? Welcome back to another edition of Superpowers, here with my co-host, Bill Weiss. Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Bill's back. We're beginning to really enjoy the sound of this microphone energy. Dear friend, Felicity Conrad has joined us today. Hi, Felicity.
Hi, team. How are you?
We're here. We're talking superpowers. So, new guest, Felicity, we always like to jump right in and start with sort of our classic and very thoughtful question.
Let's also give Felicity the benefit of, so the purposes of this podcast is to find unique people who have found their passion, talk about, where they've gone, how they got to where they are now. And then in the stories and in the background, we try to uncover what your unique superpower is. And your superpower may not be.
It's a game. It's a game.
A little bit of a game. It's a little bit of a game. And a superpower isn't just what you're good at. It's something that just drives you, that's unique, and so.
But we uncover it,
yes,
and we share at the end. Now the reason, so Felicity right now wants to say, like, Chris, why the fuck didn't you just say what Bill said? That's what she wants to say, but she's going to be too polite.
I'm Canadian. I couldn't possibly say that.
That's where we're going to jump in. So Bill actually did summarize it. We do like to. We do like to lead into it, but at the end, we will do our best to sort of uncover
After
it.
Peeling back that onion, we will find its core.
Excellent.
All right.
I'm
all right.
excited.
So let's start with Canada.
Let's start with Canada. Where are you from? and tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your sort of upbringing looks like, and family and all that sort of stuff, and any fun stories there. Yeah.
Yes. So I am Canadian, at times a proud Canadian even. I grew up on Vancouver Island, which is a very kind of far away place, at least when you're sitting here in New York.
Yep.
And I'm often surprised because it's quite a large island, but a lot of people don't even know it exists.
Sure.
So Vancouver Island is off the coast of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I grew up in a really small town with like 1,000 people. There was a paper mill. I grew up on the ocean, had a little hobby farm, pet chickens.
Oh my God, I love this place.
Sheep.
Sounds like Lord of the Rings or something like right
pretty
now.
Much. I was a hobbit, yes.
I've also seen pictures of Vancouver Island. Yeah. It's on my list to go visit. Never been, but I really want to go.
It's absolutely exquisite.
Reno was right above that, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. So as you know, I was born in Finland, and my summers were on the Finnish islands that are all just, there's actually a very close connection with Canada.
I bet.
Trees, water, nature. So I can completely sort of can picture this idyllic childhood.
Yeah, it was an absolutely exquisite place to grow up. I would say, though, that for all it makes up, for all it has in nature and bounty and trees, there weren't a lot of people. There wasn't a ton happening, and I was really insulated from that. I read a lot of books, but I grew up with a pretty deep longing to see the world, to know what's out there, to be a part of the conversation.
What was fun? I'm sure it was like a lot of made-up games. I'm going to assume that you probably have a higher level of creativity than most. No iPads at the time, but what was? No. Did you like kind of create your own version of kickball out there on Vancouver Island? Like, what was going on?
I like hung out in the woods.
Yeah.
Like pretty much I'd find random creatures. I did a lot of snorkeling. So a lot of different, I don't know, I'd find octopuses.
Wow.
Who are very intelligent,
frogs.
by the way.
I don't know. It was a weird time, but an incredible time. As a kid, you can't really ask for anything better.
All right. Well, clearly we can spend the entire podcast
I know.
on Vancouver Island. Okay. But
so
as a young girl, did you have any visions of what did you want to become when you got older?
No. I knew that I wanted to do something internationally, but I mean, I thought that I maybe would be a physicist.
Yep.
I was really interested in kind of the big problems out there, thinking about the big questions, but I didn't really have I certainly didn't have any thoughts of being an entrepreneur.
Right.
That actually, I somewhat famously said once in college, I went to McGill, that an entrepreneur is the last thing I would ever do.
Did you put that like in a yearbook, or did you like write that on a wall somewhere?
I remember
It's
saying
documented.
it.
It's fully documented.
Yeah.
And we will get to that.
By the way, people who say they want to be entrepreneurs are like the worst entrepreneurs.
Or
right?
the ones that like over-index it on LinkedIn.
Because you can't say, I want to be an entrepreneur. You got to find a passion
right.
and then pursue it either through a company, a startup, an existing company, or your own.
Right.
But like people who like say they want to be entrepreneurs, I feel like are the worst entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So just one last sort of question around that period of time. Anything that you did from a career perspective or making money, or, you know, was there anything there, like some fun stories, whether it was working at the local shop or whatnot?
Yeah.
Anything that could be interesting to share?
To help psychoanalyze for the
that's Felicity. This is our show, and we'll get to that. Don't come in here and start pushing us around with those elbows.
All right. I trained. So I was born with feet that were kind of deformed. They were turned in and just kind of maladapted. So I wore kind of the like. What's the movie with Tom Hanks?
That's the visual I got.
Yeah.
Run, Forrest, run.
Exactly.
Run.
Forrest Gump style shoes. They were metal. I had to wear them on the wrong feet.
Wow.
It was a whole thing. And so one of the things that my mom did to try to help me kind of have normal functioning feet was she put me into ballet when I was 3 years old.
To force the issue.
Force turnout.
Yep.
So it turned out that I ended up being good at that. And I ended up training to be a professional ballet dancer for pretty much my entire childhood. So really seriously, I like lived away from home.
I'm sorry, Felicity. This sounds like the point of the show where it sounds like overcoming an obstacle.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes.
I mean, holy crap!
Wow.
But so
how do you go from like deformed feet to professional ballet? By the way, professional ballet, you have to have perfect feet.
Yeah, well, so there is a slightly less happy end to the story. So my feet I kind of got over, but right about the point when I was thinking about either joining a company and pursuing it kind of after I graduated high school, I actually injured my back. Overtraining one summer with some folks from the Chinese National Ballet.
Wow.
It was hardcore. So I was kind of left with this moment where the thing that I had spent a lot of time and energy investing in no longer really seemed like an option.
Right.
So
and happened pretty quickly. It's like when you read those stories, if you're watching Sports Center or whatnot, it's like you have like the downhill skier or some kind of incident happens that takes them out, and
slightly less dramatic than that.
But you know what? What's interesting is like that's a fork in the road. We all have fork in the roads, but to have a fork in the road that young, it can go one of two ways. Yep. Either you get motivated to find the next ballet that takes you into adulthood, or you get a job at the local grocery store and you linger on it for the rest of your life.
You push through.
I mean, it's not immediate, but eventually there.
Okay,
so now where are you at this time of your life? And
so I ended up going to college, McGill, and that kind of.
How did you end up there? Why did you pick McGill, or why didn't you vice versa? Why did they pick you?
So I got a really good scholarship there. It's one of the best universities. And I thought Montreal was a really cool place, but it also, like, it's a French-speaking place. I was interested in the world. And while I was there...
I thought all colleges in Canada are free. They're not?
No. But comparatively...
I've been saying that for years as if it was true.
That's the Nordics. That's where this guy's from.
Yeah.
Really?
That's where education's free.
All right, we move on.
And healthcare.
We move on.
But, like, comparatively, Canada's doing pretty well.
Can you speak French?
Yes, but I learned that later.
Can we do the rest of the show in French? And
I'll just leave.
Bill and I will improvise the best we can. Or
yes, I'm sure everyone will love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're at school. What did you study at school? What was your experience at school?
So I studied physics originally, and then realized that I don't know. It seemed pretty detached. I thought that I was into it, but it didn't feel human enough to me. It didn't feel
Yep.
relevant. And frankly, I didn't know if I'd be smart enough to figure out what Einstein couldn't.
Right.
Like,
right.
sure, like maybe I'm
That's
smart,
a great way to put it.
but like, am I that smart? Let's
Right.
be honest,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I lingered on that for a minute, but then I ended up doing this program where I spent a semester in East Africa, and that was like
Mind-blowing.
super life-changing for me. It was just one of those moments where you don't, like, I had no idea what life would be like for other people around the world, and to have that kind of like visceral experience. I spent 6 months. I was camping. I was doing research on implementation for the Millennium Development Goal, which is a mouthful, for primary education. So like going around to different schools in Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania,
No,
like AIDS orphanages.
All kids do this your age. I mean,
Yeah.
you're- so first of all, I went there for my honeymoon for 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Kenya, East Africa. I was in tears when I
Yeah.
came back because it was such an, like, literally out of body, where it was the first time. And since then, in 2006, I had this out of body where I was like, what is my purpose in life? I've never asked myself. I wasn't on any narcotics, or I was like, what am I doing? And I just want to be back with the baby cheetahs. And how are those giraffes doing? Like, literally.
Totally.
So I can't imagine for 6 months that place, out of all places on the planet.
But hold on. So you went there on like a study abroad program, or
Yeah, McGill had a thing where you could do a semester.
yeah, but you know, like so my kids now are thinking about studying abroad, but they're like saying, yeah, I want to go to London and I want
Right,
to go to
yeah.
you know
Yeah.
Spain and Barcelona. Like what you chose,
I picked
Africa.
the other option. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
And so, but you had mentioned earlier that you just, you know, you were like, there's this greater world out there,
Yeah,
and
I
the
wanna
world is
know.
huge. So you have this like curiosity.
because of this small remote place that she grew up with, right?
yeah, I mean, tackling
It all makes
octopuses.
sense.
So now you're coming out of you're now
Yeah.
let's get into kind of the
Well, she's no longer into physics, and
Done.
so now
Right.
what did you choose?
Well, so yeah, I had this kind of existential crisis. I had this somewhat earth-shattering experience where I realized that I'm an extraordinarily privileged person, and I felt pretty deeply that it was my responsibility to give back, to try to be as kind of a net positive person as much as possible in my lifetime, to try to like rebalance the scales.
That's a very powerful and moving statement, and most people don't sort of think like that.
No. People think like that
they
after
don't
they've
actu-
made a ton of money and they're much older. But you
Right, I had
you,
no skills.
But no,
no
but you had
pedigree, no.
this.
Yeah.
No, but you know, no. I'm using this as a positive. Like you had the mental capacity to understand that and what motivated you at a very young age.
Right.
Like so.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
I mean, you found your passion at like 20.
Yeah, pretty lucky, I think. And so that kind of mission statement for my life hasn't really changed.
Wow.
Which is
And so, what do your parents do?
so my mother is a social worker.
Okay.
My dad is he now refers to himself as an affable monk, but he is a sailor intellectual, but he used to be an environmental lawyer. So
Okay.
I mean, I think some
Okay,
of it's in
all
the
right.
DNA, definitely.
And do you have
Okay.
siblings?
I have a sister, yes.
And what does she do?
She is in communications at a company called Arc'teryx. She's an incredible kind of mountain climber, just athlete.
Okay, got
outdoors,
it. I
outdoorswoman.
need to.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
You
no.
got
to
it?
get
The
full-
context
yes.
is there.
I got it.
So
I got it.
now we're getting into career
Yes.
career mode, which
Yes.
is sounds like crisis at first. You kind of know
Right.
who you want to be before you grow up, which is a gift, by the way, because most people don't have that. And
Right.
now you do what?
Try to get a job.
Did you?
Yeah, so I worked for a little bit at the UN, which was great. I was able to intern and then worked there for a couple of years, and that was at the International Criminal Court. And that tries heads of states for genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and it really started to like compound this life purpose for me, where
Wow.
the more I learned about what was happening, and I mean, that's an incredible thing, because one case there can change an entire country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And millions of people probably.
Such scalable change using the tool of law, which people wouldn't normally think of as like a scalable
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
So I got really excited about that. Went to law school.
Where'd you go to law school?
NYU here.
Nice.
And then it's this funny thing because law school's so expensive.
Yeah,
It's so expensive. I mean, like, university, Canada's not free, but like it is really expensive here. And so most people, I think, after grad school and certainly after law school, like, they go into the private sector because
That's where you can make coin.
you have to.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I did, like a lot of my classmates.
But I got to pull back for a second.
Ready.
So you're a law student in New York City, which is very different from Vancouver, very different from Canada.
Yes.
No
How was
octopuses.
your first 6 months living in New York City?
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely a cultural shift, but I liked it.
Yeah. Did you go crazy at all? Did you like have any, or you're balanced?
Yeah, I don't think I went crazy.
Okay.
I definitely felt a little bit out of my like realm of comfort.
Yep.
Did anything about the city distract you from your kind of your sort of North Star mission? And that's just a byproduct of like, let's go get dinner and then we'll go to the West Village and come to a show. And then you're like, I'm hungover.
She couldn't afford shows.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so if I were to graph my social skills on like a curve, it would be very recently kind of exponentially.
So what would this conversation
I
look?
didn't have a ton of friends in law, like like when I moved to New York, I didn't know a lot of people. It was pretty easy to focus.
So you're introverted.
I'm definitely introverted.
Yeah.
So am I.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
So this
clearly.
So this podcast done on Vancouver Island, it would have been like a 4-hour show trying to get a couple words out of you. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think some of that is just like also finding your people, right?
Yep.
And having
100%.
finding places where you can have conversations that are real and mean something.
Yep.
So
you're in New York City. You could have loads of distractions, but you don't because you haven't found your people. You have your North Star.
Got nothing to do.
You don't need to go crazy. You just want to study the books, get your law degree.
Yeah, and I'm terrified because I mean I've heard everything.
Because there's no octopuses running around New York City.
Right, and like I'm a little
not the
girl.
ones you want to meet.
Totally.
No.
Yeah, and I'm from like Vancouver Island. I have no business going to like NYU, like one of the best law schools in the country. I have no idea if like I'm gonna fail or if I'm gonna learn everything. I'm terrified.
Yeah. How many times? Like, how often did you call your parents?
Maybe once a week, once every couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, when I went off to college, the first time I talked to my parents was when I came back on Christmas break.
Oof.
You just went dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I'm out and about.
Bet your parents
And then
like
I
that.
came home with all my dirty clothes in a garbage bag. And they go, who are you and what's in the garbage bag? And I was like, it's my laundry because I haven't done it once.
And how was my last 4 months of existence or whatever it is? That's nuts.
It's
Yeah.
terrible,
wow.
right? By the way, I call my
Poor
mom.
parents.
I call or text my mom every day now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So I'm
good.
making up for lost time.
Bill, same.
Making up for lost
Same.
time.
Same.
Okay. All right. We move on. You're in law school.
Yes.
You have your North Star. What do you
Yeah.
do after law school? You get the corporate job because you got to
yes.
pay off the loans.
That's what I do.
And are you miserable at this corporate job?
I found it interesting. Like it's really you have to employ a lot of strategic thinking. It's
Sure.
high stakes. You're like creating cases around billions of dollars, and like I was the youngest in my class. I had no business doing any of these sorts of high stake things. So I found that really exhilarating. But in terms of the passion piece, it definitely wasn't there. And so. But I was able to do pro bono work at the law firm
Okay.
that I was at. In fact, they encourage you to, and they help you sign up for cases. So,
And do you get to pick what pro bono cases you
Yeah.
get? Okay.
so I
This
took.
may or may not lead into what she's doing today. Just saying.
Just saying.
We'll see.
All right. Well, too soon to tell. So I took on a case where I represented a man from Colombia. He'd been a local politician and had kind of family, young kids. And the FARC, which was a narco-terrorist organization, came into his community and started causing trouble, like real trouble. So he because he had no choice, spoke out against them, trying to protect his community. And they came after him and they tried to kill him.
So after him is like
Yeah.
mob
Yes.
style.
Yes, the
okay.
stuff you see on TV.
Wow.
Yes. So he fled within Colombia and they found him. And so eventually he felt he had no choice. He fled to the United States and sought refuge.
Wow.
Incredible.
But when he came across my desk as a first-year litigator, he was actually in the process of being deported. Couldn't afford a lawyer. And he's young children, and he thought that if he was being deported, which he was, he'd be killed.
Yeah.
So
That's serious stuff.
Oh my God.
It's next level. So I took on his case with another associate, and we went to immigration court. I mean, like,
You fought.
we didn't really know what we were doing either, but compared to, like, we're lawyers, we have
Right.
some of these skills, right?
Yeah.
Even if we don't know that we have them.
Right.
And we represented him, we argued his case, and at the end, the judge granted him asylum.
Oh.
And it's just this
What a-
incredible feeling.
How
Wow.
long ago was that?
That was, maybe like 5 years ago.
5-6
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
Are you still in touch with him?
I'm not in touch with him, but I have pro bono clients now that I
But you at this stage of your life, you
Yeah.
did more for somebody that you didn't know than most people would like to do in their entire lifetime. And I imagine that was, I mean, I'm beginning to see this sort of, this seems or may have been like the first big step in your kind of getting closer to what your purpose is.
Well, totally. But the thing is it wasn't like, you only know how good it feels to do that after you do it. Like, it was a total revelation to me, that feeling. Like, afterwards, he took me out to McDonald's, and I mean, I was a vegetarian, I couldn't eat anything on the menu, but he wanted to treat me to something because like that was all he could do.
Wow.
And so he bought me some French fries.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we sat down, kind of like feeling this immense weight lifted, this joy. Like, you can't put your finger on that. Like,
Right.
you can't replicate that. So for me, I just got like almost addicted to that feeling. How can you help scale that feeling, right? And for the lawyers, but then also like how can you, there's so many people like my client out there, like 5.1 billion people lack access to justice and are just not served by the legal system. So I just started to get really excited about how we could replicate, or how I could be a part of making this bigger.
And this first encounter with this individual was your first taste of what pro bono within the legal walls looked like and what it meant, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So
By the way, I just want to just stop for a moment and I mean, that's such a moving story and just such a beautiful, and it's funny because people think of how many lawyer jokes are there, right? Everyone loves to bash lawyers, right?
Yeah.
But to take a step back and think that so many lawyers actually do a bunch of pro bono work, even like the bad lawyers.
Totally.
Yeah. And this is incredible.
Yep.
This is incredible.
No, honestly, like there's such a rebranding that I think needs to happen of lawyers in the legal profession, because often they don't talk about the things that they do.
Yeah.
But there's so many incredible stories. And even like when family separation was happening, it was lawyers who were like sleeping over at the airports, right? Like they were on the front lines of making sure that people were being protected and continue to be at the border. But yeah, for some reason, and
I think it's a combination of the office spaces that you guys work in and the shitty carpets, and maybe if you throw some hoodies on and put jeans on, or maybe there's a little bit of that, but I agree. There's an opportunity. Okay, so you get this taste of pro bono, and now you're accelerating. Now Felicity's like, let's do this.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And I want to get to this transition into your startup, and which is a huge step for anybody and a lot of our guests that Bill and I talked to about starting a company. So I want to get to, okay, you got legal, you got pro bono, and now you're like, I'm going to go start a company.
Well, there's a step before that, which was I was excited about the problem. I was excited about the opportunity to that was clearly available. Somebody needs to be focusing on this, and there's some people focusing on it, but nowhere near enough to kind of solve it.
Yep.
So I kind of looked around at the ecosystem, but again, being an entrepreneur, like a founder of a company, hadn't quite entered my mind yet. I was lucky enough to have some folks in the startup space and the innovation space who, just through watching them, I started to think that maybe it would be possible for me to do the same thing. And it wasn't from a positive space of like, oh, yes, I can do this. It was from a place of like, why not me?
Right.
Because there's
Love
literally no one.
We've heard that before.
So
We've heard
why not me? And some of it was the way I tend to make decisions is through a regret minimization framework.
Of course. I mean, who doesn't? I don't even know what that means. I don't even know.
Just tell me what that is.
Oh, okay. Well,
edit that out.
yeah, sorry. So, yeah, essentially, I knew that my 80-year-old self or however old I get to live would regret me not going for it. Like, she
Yes.
would yell at me
Yes.
to say, what are you waiting
Yeah.
for? You know, like, life's short.
Yes.
Go for it.
And so,
By the
what
way,
did you
can
call- what
we
did
just
you call
start?
that?
Can we just for that for the millions of viewers? Life's short. Go for it.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, but
I mean-
what'd you call it? The regret? What?
Oh, minimization framework. I'm a nerd.
The
I'm a
regret
nerd.
minimization. framework.
Minimization framework.
Minimum. All right.
Okay.
By the way, I love that.
I just
love
want to
that.
say something that it's. I didn't know this part of the story, Felicity, but it's a total gift when you can apply passion and interest with actually building something. Because a lot of people may just have to be forced to approach it one way. It's like, I want to be, to Bill's point earlier, I want to be a founder, I want to be an entrepreneur because it may be sexier. When I was like, what do I build? Which is the
Right.
worst thing to do.
Yeah.
And then the other side, it's, this is my call and this is my passion, but maybe A, I can't make any money from it, or B, I have to do it within some other environment. So now this inflection point of like, holy shit, I can do what I love and what I'm put on this planet for, and be the CEO,
Like,
and
who's
co-founder of my
who's
fucking
luckier
company.
than me?
Okay, I'm
But
feeling it.
I actually I tell young people all the time, your goal in life is to find your passion. That's your goal. Do not be motivated by money. If you find your passion, you know, you're going to find riches that may come monetarily, it may come otherwise.
Totally.
But that is your, and clearly, you know, you found out your passion when you were 19 or 20.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a risk-adverse lawyer who now quits her corporate job and becomes an entrepreneur, which, by the way, is not in the DNA.
No. That was a weird time.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think a skill that I try to have is resilience. And like, I don't know, I think in life sometimes you can choose to like hold on to like painful times and memories, or just like kind of forget about them. I don't really remember like what that time felt like or freaking out about it.
Yep.
I just kind of got into this like survival, like sink or swim mode, and I tried to talk to as many people as possible, learn as much as possible. I knew that I was like, I needed to just learn a lot in a short amount of time, and that was my only job, because I had competencies on the subject matter, but I didn't have competencies in starting a company. But then that's also where my co-founder came in. So like part of it.
So now we're at this point of the journey where
Yeah.
we're starting a company.
Totally.
Okay.
It's happening.
What is it? What is the company?
Oh, right. So the company is called Paladin, and we are.
You started Peloton?
Yes.
Wow.
My
I just got a Peloton bike.
It's either that or Palantir, and I'm like, no, it's really not either.
They're not a billion yet, Felicity.
Okay,
We're
all right.
tracking.
All right.
Yeah.
It's not
yet.
Peloton. She didn't start Peloton. She
No,
started
no,
something
the Justice
much greater.
Exercise.
Something actually
company.
better with more purpose.
Yes.
Please.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we're a justice technology company. So you may not know what that is because there really aren't any. We're trying to create a new category, which is serving pretty much the bottom half of the legal industry. So, I mean, the current legal services right now, they cover people who can afford to pay. And
Yep.
it's like over $200 an hour for, on average, a lawyer in America. That doesn't work for most people. So we're focused on building tech products kind of to serve the really underserved sections of the population, and the primary product for that we're starting out with is a pro bono platform. So we've built the first software.
I see what you did there.
See what she did there?
I see what you did there.
See?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in terms of, so you got the head, the torso, and the tail, right, if you will, in corporate talk. So you are going after the underprivileged tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
probably the hardest thing to solve for.
But this is a huge tail.
Yeah, huge tail.
Like this is bigger than the head and the body together.
And
like,
most people, when they start a company, it's like, it's this industry and this geography.
Yeah.
You have the world's population
Yeah.
Yeah.
as your oyster,
Yeah.
if you will.
Totally. And so I think that makes it difficult to focus, but through the kind of focus on a pro bono platform, we're able to kind of, I think, narrow the section that we're working on.
Yep.
Even though it is a broad kind of swath.
Can you give
Yeah.
the audience a sense of what are the insights of how many hours law firms are meant to give, or how big is that TAM is that you're looking at?
Yeah. So I mean, lawyers in America, they have a professional responsibility to do 50 hours a year of pro bono work.
Mm-hmm.
There's 1.3 million lawyers. 86% of low-income Americans never get the legal help they need. And pro bono is a huge part of bridging that gap. So last year in billable hours, the biggest law firms in the world, 4% of their time was spent on pro bono work. So it's a pretty big part of their kind of like legal
it's
offerings.
massive. So are you building the platform that's going to connect people in need to basically these really, really qualified lawyers?
Yeah.
And by the way, $200 an hour, I think, when I heard $200 an hour, like none of the lawyers that we hire at my company cost $200 an hour. They're a lot higher.
Because they know you can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, you probably have great lawyers.
Yeah.
But everyone deserves at least some access.
100%.
Right.
100%.
I forgot the question.
No, so you're building a platform to connect.
Yes.
A software.
The tail to great lawyers.
Yeah, so it's a software, like kind of a SaaS-enabled marketplace. So we work with legal service organizations. So like one that everyone might know is obviously like the ACLU.
Yep.
So they have clients, and they might work with pro bono lawyers. So our software works at the legal aid level. Opportunities flow through the system to like law firms, Fortune 500 companies, their legal teams use us, law schools, governments,
and who pays?
And we help match
who
them.
pays for this service?
The law firms, the Fortune 500s.
Great.
It's efficiency software for them. We save them money. We make their
and
programs
I'm
effective.
sure there are lawyers like your younger self who has a passion on spending 4% of their time on something, and now they can use this to find those passions and help people.
Yeah, it's a huge recruitment tool. It's a huge kind of employee satisfaction tool. Doing good and doing well, like they really are starting to become intertwined. I think that's one of the big trends of the future. Businesses are investing in doing good because it helps drive their business. It helps drive their workforce.
So give us a sense now. How long ago did you start? I believe you guys are about 4 years old. You've raised some money. If you can talk about, what, I don't know, and maybe people that invested, clients that you work with. Just give us a sense of kind of what your company looks like today and where is it going?
So probably compared to some of the folks that you have on, like the last speaker, we're pre-exit, we're pre-raising boatloads of money. We're kind of
that's more fun.
Yeah.
We're in the trenches. So we have raised $2 million. Our investors span from like a Mark Cuban, who's been really supportive.
We've had him on our show.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we like Mark.
Who's that guy? Right?
He was good.
Just kidding,
He was
Mark,
trying to
thank
promote
you.
some tequila.
That's awesome. Investors like Backstage Capital, so some investors focusing on diversity, things like that. Harlem Capital, some VC funds, like Chack Ventures, Hyde Park Ventures, kind of a swath of.
How is that whole, like, because you can't go to school or learn that, how to start a company, how to create a culture, how to raise money. Like, how has that journey been?
It's all about your growth mindset.
Yeah.
You can't go in thinking you know anything, because you're going to find out you're wrong, right?
100%.
So you have to think in ways that hopefully are able to draw out the information that you need. Like, we're all building the plane as we fly it, but like, that's the same in life. Nobody has lived this life before. Nobody knows what they're doing.
There's no textbook.
There's no dress rehearsals in life.
Right. No. So, we're all kind of living this like wild experiment, and I don't think I need to feel any kind of shame around that. You just want to collect information.
By the way, now that you had the whole regrettable factor thing,
right?
Like, now I imagine like little like your little old self,
totally.
like you as a grandmother on your shoulder, being like, don't worry about raising money. Right. You're gonna regret this.
Yeah. You'll be fine. And I know what she looks like now because of that face app thing.
Yes.
Russian. I know.
Yeah. You're like, there she is. She's there. What does this? If we were sitting on this show like a couple of years from now, or whatever, it could be 2 years, 4 or 5 years. The biggest sort of ambitious thing that you want out of this business and your dream, and kind of taking all these sort of pieces of your life together. What does it look like? How many people are you touching? Have you sort of been able to quantify what you want this to be when it gets really big? Big. Really, what I'm saying is the purpose, like the fact that it's purpose driven. How many people it impacts or whatnot.
We want to move the needle. We want to actually change the world, and we want to be able to measure that we've changed the world, which also doesn't really exist. Like, the data around this doesn't exist. So. That's something that we want to be able to put out there to show that, like, lawyers doing pro bono work, that us all helping actually does make a difference in people's lives, and that by doing it scalably, we're actually able to, like, maybe we can get that number from 5.1 billion people who lack access to justice to like 3, Can we get it to 2? Can we together create a movement that gets it to 1, 0? Like, we do need to have really ambitious goals here, kind of similar to climate change, because like, these are real problems and they're real people. So I do think that ambition matters, not just from a financial standpoint, but otherwise, what are we all doing?
And then outside of climate change, what are some of the other, I guess, topics that you feel your company can impact?
So all sorts of problems. We have a huge refugee crisis globally right now, an immigration crisis in the United States. People need a lot of help. There's housing issues. People are in housing court alone. They have discriminatory landlords. They have mold. They have no hot water. Domestic violence. There's animal rights cases, which are super cool, like same-sex marriage, LGBTQ. Criminal justice reform, which is having a huge moment right now, and we're really excited about. These are all issues that affect every facet of somebody's life. If they've got a legal issue, they pretty much can't live the rest of their life. Like, it puts it on hold. It's kind of a veto card in most people's kind of daily lives.
So I am fascinated with people who create companies that are trying to do good in the world, right? I feel like, being an entrepreneur who starts something to make the world a better place, sometimes the two are at odds, right? Yeah. You have investors who have expectations of return on their investment. So they may measure your success on how viable is your software, how profitable is it. So how do you balance those two, right? Because when I hear you, it's not about, hey, I'm going to grow the revenue from a startup to $100 million and we're going to make this an EBITDA. Yeah. You're talking about, billions of lives that you make better and affect. Yeah. And so how do you manage those two?
Yeah, I would resist the word balance. I don't think they are two separate things that you ought to balance. And I feel pretty strongly that that hopefully the future of a lot of companies is about using them together to amplify it and making them just totally inextricably linked. So you can't influence and help however many people if you don't have a sustainable, big, scalable business. Like, you can't.
Right.
And so we're, I think, one of the first public benefit corporation in legal tech, one of the first B Corps. There's so much room for amplification, I think, and bridging of like the big problems of the world, I think, have historically been solved by nonprofits or have been considered to be the domains of nonprofits.
Yep.
But I don't think that needs to be true. There are other tools in our toolkit that will work.
Great.
So
I just think what's great is the not only is it purpose driven, but the fact that you can sort of the dependency on venture and growth to actually make this thing happen is also still required, but that's also a good thing, and they're not mutually exclusive.
And you know, I mean, Chris, you invest in a lot of companies, as do I. You know, it's funny because, you know, when you invest in companies that are trying to do good for the world, you know, it's almost like you go into those investments not expecting a huge return.
Yeah.
Like, you want a return, but your tolerance is much higher to like be like, hey, if I do a 1x, if I do a 2x or 3x here, I don't need a 30x here, right?
Yeah.
Are your investors of that same mindset?
Sort of. I do think that, so the data bears out that, like, impact companies, like in quotes, don't perform worse. They perform on par or better. And that's a bit of like an opportunity for a conversation and education, because sometimes people do have those concerns. And in fact, I know a lot of impact companies that would not call themselves an impact company because they're afraid of that preconception.
Right.
Wow.
So I think it's important to label yourself an impact company if that's what you're trying to do.
Right.
But I don't think that should mean that you're not trying to grow in the same kind of way as other companies.
All right, and so we're running low on time here. So I'm not sure you got to the question, and the answer for Chris is, where do you think this company is in 5 or 10 years?
So the company will have
if
scaled
you put your
globally.
Little grandma self on your shoulder,
yes.
And
what is she telling you have to get to in 10 years?
And if there was a comp for like the Eventbrite for, if there's another sort of connotation or example based on what you're doing in legal, that's another way of sort of framing it.
I mean, I think we'll hopefully be a global company. We will have thousands of cases running through the system, affecting a lot of people. And I think we'll have succeeded in creating a new category, which is justice tech, have a generation of companies coming up behind us to work on kind of related issues. We'll have proven that the model works, that this is an area ripe for innovation and success. And we can all give ourselves a little pat on the back before moving forward onto the next challenge.
Have you heard the term justice tech before today?
I mean, incredible.
The other thing,
how many hours a week do you think you work?
Oof, a lot.
Yeah, yeah. You don't even it'd be a scary number, right?
Yeah.
Because you're always working.
The other thing I just learned in listening, you sort of summarize that, is you becoming and the opportunity and responsibility of being somewhat of an icebreaker in this category, and what that actually may mean for entrepreneurs and founders in this category. I mean, like, it is truly the first time from a legal perspective that I'm like, there's something there, because you're right, no one talks about it. It's sort of this, like, to Bill's point earlier, car insurance or, investment banker and attorney. There's definitely a there to uplift this, and I do think, I don't know, through marketing or fun videos. I do know a company that likes to create original content.
Oh, do you?
On behalf of startups.
Oh, amazing.
So we can talk to you about them.
Fantastic.
But anyway, so let's kind of summarize it. So first of all, Felicity, so amazing to have you and hear this story. And I think there will be people that will listen to this and I believe will have a level of motivation and interest around this space.
I got to tell you, the one thing this podcast has made me believe, or like has instilled upon me, is I actually thought I was a pretty good, nice guy and pretty successful until we started this freaking podcast.
I know.
And now I feel so insignificant.
I know. I'm gonna hug my kids tonight and be like, say that Dad's a good person.
So this is,
you're both amazing.
Congratulations. I mean, this is such a wonderful story. I actually think we're gonna have more comments on this podcast than any other podcast.
100%.
And because I think people are gonna feel your passion, and people are gonna be, you know, like this is a new category that has so much interest. And by the way, just imagine there's a whole bunch of other people that can connect in here, right? It's like, hey, I have a software that funds companies. Like, I'd love to connect that into your software. Like, I foresee this being much greater than what you said 10 years from now.
Or the individual that's having a real problem or crisis that 100%. Actually didn't. So listen, from the I'll do my best here.
Go ahead.
The summary. So
because now we're at the point in which we're going to name your superpower.
I'm ready.
So from Vancouver, so the small islands of Canada. Yes. To octopus hunting, which the octopus thing is going to just remain with me. You know, small town, small island girl, but always recognizing sort of this larger ambition and potential you have in you. I could kind of summarize the career, but if there's one word that comes to me, which I doubt I'm going to say for other founders, is you have your superpower is empathy. I think you have a gift in understanding and thinking about others, which is a very rare gift. I think we all hope to be more like that, but I think having empathy for others is what's allowed you to get to this stage.
It's a decent shot.
Not bad.
Decent shot. So, is something you said about when you were, an 18 or 19-year-old college student in Africa, where it was you almost found your North Star. I'm not as eloquent as either of you, but I would say one of the things you realize is there's this social equilibrium, and for the world to work, not just today, but 1,000 years from today, there needs to be that social equilibrium where it balances. And I think, if you went into corporate law and just stayed there, like all of a sudden the balance isn't equal, right? And then you jump to the other side and you're applying your law degree to good in this world. I actually think you have a sense of that social equilibrium, and what impact you can have is so far greater than just one person. And I actually think that's your life's mission, is making sure that social equilibrium is there so that we continue on.
Is it equilibrium? Is it balance?
It's I don't know, but
or a combination of both.
Yeah, I can't pick the words, but it's this. It's like you have this understanding of what, and you can pick any one topic, right? Climate change is obviously a huge one right now, but it's like, like if the U.S. does a whole bunch of shit for climate change, it doesn't matter if the rest of the world doesn't, right? That equilibrium matters. So I just think you are the champion for that social equilibrium and what we need to maintain ourselves, and not just the top percent or the 1/10 of 1% or even the top 50%. It's like 100% of the world's peoples.
So my response to that.
Yeah,
have you said the name of your company yet for our viewers?
It's Peloton. They're going to think it's Peloton.
Can you just say it again?
Yeah. So it's called Paladin, and Paladin.
And where it's derived from, right?
Yeah. So it's an old word, and I'm a nerd. So it comes from Charlemagne. So Charlemagne had these knights of his court that were called paladins, and that the name kind of stuck in over history. It's meant to be a champion for a cause. So that's kind of the purpose of the company. But it's also I think, God, this is so feel good. I feel so heard. It's my life's mission. I wrote down my mission statement maybe a couple of years ago, and it's to make the world a more just place.
A more just place.
So that's nailed it. You guys are amazing.
Let's end there. Felicity Conrad, thank you so much for joining.
This is amazing.
Superpowers. Thank you.
Superpowers.